Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Bite Size Branding live show. We're very excited to have this show. We love it when we can get two guests on the show, which we've got down here. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, guys. I'd like to thank Andrew and Jane for joining us. They're both amazing experts in the world, the realm of print. So we're going to share a lot of background information about what's happening in the print world, where is it going, what's changed, how is it morphing and continuing to change. So really looking forward to all these insights about what's happening in the market. But as always, before we springboard into that, I've got Grant. I always point the wrong way. Damn this reflection. Grant, who is always on the show with me. So grateful to have you again co-hosting. Mate, can you give everyone a little bit of a background on how the show is going to break down today?
Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone and welcome to the show. And my name is Grant Tom and I'm known as the head fire starter of the marketing and advertising industry. What that's all about is that anyone who's got an idea that needs to get it to market, I'm the guy that helps them put it together. But more than anything, I have passion. With 35 years of experience, I love everything to do that's to do with design, implementation, digital, and of course, advertising means. I love today's subject in the sense of printing. My father was a printer, so when I was a little kid, I used to hang around in the print shop all the time. So I grew up in a print environment. So I'm very keen to hear how print is transgressing in a very complicated space, but at the same time, revolutionary space. So the way the show works is we normally have a guest on and we go 5 minutes. But because we have special guests on, we're going to go for 7 minutes. And all you have to do is you have to interrupt, get your point across, make sure it's valid. If not, someone's going to knock you out of contention. But it's all in a gentleman's fashion. So over to the show. Let the Bite Size Branding show begin.
Awesome, Grant. Thank you very much. Guys, obviously, Andrew, Jane, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, we always like to give a couple of minutes for our guests to introduce themselves and a little bit of background on their business. So if you don't mind, I'll kick it over to Andrew to start. Mate, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on your business and the transition I think that it's going through at the moment?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I'm originally from a marketing background. So out of uni, I went into FMCG marketing, got assistant brand management roles for a number of years. And that was sort of my intro into the world of work. And from there, I segued into a bit of a sales role, lead generation and nurturing sales funnels and databases. And that was quite a hands-on role and really got my hands dirty, got some good experience there. And then I sort of continued the funnel from big to entrepreneurship. And I landed up purchasing a business called Forestville Printing, which was a printing business on the Northern Beaches in Forestville. That's almost 6 years ago now. And I've spent the last 6 years really getting to know clientele, getting to know the industry, transforming the business, improving our offering and getting it to a point where we're about to launch, as we're about to do a big rebrand. Can't really say what it is yet, but this has been cooking for a very long time, and we'll be very excited to launch in a month. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Very exciting. And then that was actually kind of what sparked this whole idea. Was Andrew mentioned this transition. I'm like, mate, we got to get you on the show. But then as soon as I thought of Andrew getting on the show and he agreed, and I was like, we should make this a printing extravaganza. And I got to bring on my friends at Cloud Print. So Jane, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Tell us a little bit more about Cloud Print and your role in the big printing world.
Thanks for having me. I love it, Bernard. And Andrew, I'm very excited to hear what you're up to. I've got a very curious mind, so I'm dying to know. So I've been with Cloud Print Group as the BDM for coming up to 5 years this year. Cloud Print's been around for 9 years. I hope you can't hear that in the background. There's a beeping washing machine. So I'm getting someone to turn it on.
That's live from home. We're all working from home.
Yeah. Yeah. So 9 years, Cloudprint, I think it's 9 years. Is it going on 10? But Cloudprint has been around. So Christian, who's the owner of Cloudprint, he's been in printing forever because even though he's in his 30s, he worked with his father and his grandfather. So the father had a business and the grandfather before that. So printing is like in his blood. I have a little side note story that I have 2 Charles Dickens books that my dad gave me because our great-great-grandfather had one of the biggest printing companies in the UK, because that's where I'm originally from. So I've got it in the background in my blood too. So yeah, but Cloudprint is offset, digital and large format. We've got a group of printers in the group. So there's lots of exciting things. We're expanding ourselves at the moment, going into taking over an office beside us next month, which is great. We're going to have more space.
Do you know what's crazy, I think, about both of your stories, and jump in, Grant, if you know, with your perspective on both of the stories, sound like print is going really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Right? I think like if we think about what people are talking about on the street, everyone's like, print is dead. Clearly somebody's reading the wrong obituaries, because clearly printing is not dead. Which is why I think this show is going to be so exciting, and why we really wanted to bring this all to the forefront. Is everyone ready to kick off in the first question?
Let's get going.
Grant's been so quiet so far. I'm like, oh God, what's happened to him? Let's jump into that first question. How is print keeping relevant and evolving in this digital age? It's a pretty broad question, but would love to hear your perspective, especially since both your stories are both kind of showing the maturity of print at this time. So what is happening and how is it keeping relevant during this digital age? Now, before you jump in, let me just see if I can get this without having to turn the camera. Then, yes, victory. Awesome. Go for it. Anyone can just jump in.
Yeah, well, I think that print has just changed a lot in the last 10, 20, 30 years, you know. Before the digital age and before the internet screens, obviously print was much more heavily relied upon to get information across. So your everyday bits and bobs, your phone bills, your credit card bills, all of your news, etc., was presented to you in print because there was no other way to get that across. Now, when people assume that print is dead, when they say that to you, they are referring to that change, I think, where some segments and some types of print have definitely decreased because there's much more effective ways of getting that information across. But I think in other sectors and I know in other sectors and other forms of print, it may have been impacted a bit, but it has certainly plateaued to a level which has remained steady over, I don't know, at least the 5-10 years. And I don't think it's going to decrease from where it's plateaued.
So it's kind of like print overall had a bit of an impact, and then it kind of leveled out, and now it's kind of hit its new stride.
Yeah. That's my observation.
And I think as we've all discovered over this last period with COVID, where everyone's been at first it was like, oh, it's exciting to be online, and we're all online. Then we all came across online fatigue, you know. So it's like, gosh, now all of my clients were saying, how do I stand out online compared to my other client who's running a webinar and what have you? That's where print comes straight back in, because having something to actually touch and feel is definitely a standout to just all of now. What's very common is all of the digital stuff that's coming at everybody.
Yeah,
and that's definitely.
So I was just going to say, it's definitely a part of the marketing mix that can't be ignored.
Yeah, and it's something that we always try and wrap into a lot of our campaigns. Everyone's like, let's go digital. And I'm like, why don't you go to somewhere where nobody is doing a quality communication piece? Why don't you build something of quality and drop it into target markets' mailboxes, or put it into the target market's hands? Because everyone's trying to hit you up on your email. How easy is it just to delete 10, 15 emails in the morning and then move on with your day, you know?
Exactly.
It's like a big thing that's happening in businesses, and I'm just talking from the other side of the fence right now, is that what tends to happen is that you find that clients will go and print a lot of collateral. And then what happens is they'll do stock take and find that there's still 5,000 brochures in the storeroom that didn't go to markets, and they think there's a lot of money. So therefore, they tend to say, well, let's put it online. Then we're not having to have that expense, and therefore we can keep it relevant, and we can also make changes as and when. How do you contend with that, in the sense that people were old way thinking, and yet you're still saying that print is growing? How do you contend with when people who had oversubscribed to print and didn't utilize everything correctly?
Well, this is where we manage the print much better these days. So, I mean, we have a portal as well. So we've got some of our big medical clients or pharmaceutical clients where they've got to keep that information relevant. So if I use one example of a client who they doubled their staff. So when they doubled their staff from like 15 people to 30 reps on the road, then it was like, okay, so how much of this collateral are they going to be needing to be sending out? But let's all keep doing reports for it and giving them the reports so that we can keep measuring. Do we need to print on demand? Do we need to print and store it so they're going to get a better price? But keeping in mind that this might be superseded where they have to destroy that print. And obviously we don't want to have to waste anybody's money or the environment as well by printing anything we can't use. So yeah, so we're getting much better. I think you probably agree, Andrew, of keeping on top of actually managing what people's needs are, so that we can really kind of look after that and there's no waste, and and then the customers really respect that too, of course.
And I think that's the importance of working with a good print company and a good account manager in a print company, where the client can have those conversations and work out the best print runs and the best inventory to keep and how long to store that and so forth, because that service is really important these days.
This is part of the reason why we're taking over the building next door, because we're starting to be surrounded by boxes of people's stock that's going out.
So by going that extra measure of like storing people's stock, is that being financially beneficial? Is that just long-term investment that you've done in order to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, again, it's that sweet spot of just working out, we know that they will be using it over the next XYZ amount of weeks or months. So it does turn over. So yeah, it's just really listening to what they need, looking at past history, looking at what they're doing. If they're relaunching something, it might be a product. Again, they might only want to print a little bit because they're actually going to do a whole rebrand, as you were talking about, Andrew. And so there's no point in going nuts with it, because they're going to be changing things or adding more information that they want their customers to, say, for example, they have some competition in the market, then they might want to relaunch a product again because they want to now say, oh, hang on, this is what we do better, kind of thing. Okay. So you're just continually listening to hear what the needs are so you can manage it best.
And I think the other value add of doing what you do and what we do as well is warehousing and dispatching. It means that you can do a print run and have, X amount of this, X amount of that, and then they all go together, and a marketing manager at a company can say, all right, I need a welcome pack to be delivered to this medical center tomorrow. And then that can be like picked and packed from everything you've got already printed and sent there, and it can be there today or tomorrow if need be.
So like a good takeaway from this is to keep your printing relationship a lot closer at hand. So instead of thinking them as the printer at the end of the project, if you keep them abreast of what you're doing in the business as it's developing, they can also support you to be more economical and more sustainable in the way that you go about your print works. I did have a question. I quickly want to throw it in here to add on to this. Is there still relevance in the market for business cards? I have to know, like from your perspective, what is the business card? Is there still a place? Quickly, Andrew.
Yes, I mean, we're still printing heaps of them. So quick answer, yes, definitely.
Okay.
I just saw one of my biggest clients today, and they said to me, Jane, I need your help because we need to rethink all of our, they've been printing with us, but not the business cards. So they said, look, we've got so many business cards because people are changing their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So we're out of time.
No, finish your sentence.
Because at the moment, and I was going to go into this later, there's the great resignation, or people are changing their roles, or they're going to a different department, or they're getting a promotion. And so then, and if they're people that are actually, going to conferences, and because all of that's back on again, then they need to leave their business cards. So business cards more than ever. There's still plenty of those happening.
I'm going to ask another question, and Grant, it's fine. Just give me your daggers and let's move on. Why do you think that is? Because a lot of people that come up to me these days, and Grant's experienced it too, are like, I don't need a business card. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. And my argument is always, I have 2,000 people on LinkedIn, and I have, at worst, in my pocket, I've probably got 10 of my own business cards, and maybe 4 or 5 other people's business cards. And I pull them out and I can remember all those 5 people. Whereas I add you onto my LinkedIn list and there's like,
good point.
You just go into a mix of a meld of 2,500 people.
I think a business card can really convey personality as well. And there's so many different embellishment options, and a well-designed, well-created business card can really leave an impression on somebody that a LinkedIn invitation in your email definitely can't. So,
yeah.
But you go to a meeting and you're the one that's got a card, and you give a card, but you can't get a card back. And then they say, "Oh, I'll send you an email when I get back to the office," and you never get a call, an email. And then once again, that contact is lost. The context is lost as well.
But a clever way with a business card that I'm seeing are people putting their QR codes. So there's that instant thing to LinkedIn. So it's actually on the QR code, on the actual business card, bang, and they're straight in rather than having to go and sort of manually do it themselves.
Very much so.
Yeah, nice. Cool.
Okay, business cards done.
Before I jump on to the next question, I know you love to do a little wrap up, so I'll give you a moment. Give us a wrap up of what you think a good takeaway from the last question was.
Look, I think that printing, I'm so glad to hear that printing is not dead. I feel that touch and feel has got such a valid role. The use of color is such a valid role, and endorsement of branding is such a valid role, so that this is still continuing and has its place. Everyone prescribes that digital is more instantaneous and more effective, and it's more like visible and cost effective. But at the end of the day, I think nothing beats touch and feel. So I'm so glad to hear it's not dying at all.
Yeah, I agree. Random segue, because I don't actually have a good segue into the next question. Yeah, that's what I do. Clearly, I'm well rehearsed. What are we? 58 shows in. Got this down to an art. The next question we have is all about digital and offset, which I bet comes up all the time as well. You have your kind of more traditional mindset. People are like, it needs to be offset, whether or not they actually know the value or the difference or the quality that's available on both platforms these days. Is there, I know digital has come a long way. Is there still a space for offset, and what is offset's market? So where do they kind of sit, digital and offset, in the market now? I'm gonna now have to unlock my phone. Look at this, it's gonna decide that my fingerprint doesn't exist on this phone. Yeah, see, there you go. You're welcome. Please don't forget the question. It's not gonna happen. There it is.
There we go. Right.
Technology.
Yeah, you see, that's why we're talking about printing. Who needs this?
Yeah, just stick to tradition.
Yeah, just have a guy just standing here just flipping. So digital print versus offset printing. Where is offset kind of in the space now? What's happened to it?
You go, Jane.
Yeah.
Well, definitely offset printing has changed. Again, it comes back down to managing the print. If it's something that somebody needs to have a high quantity, high volume of something, then of course offset's going to be your go-to. But also, I don't want to mention names on here because I don't want to be name dropping, but like one of the companies that we do all of their print, and the brief was they changed all their brand colors to this Bondi mint color, and they wanted it to pop. But they went back to David Jones, and David Jones said, "Oh, look, we'll just do our own, but you can do the rest of Australia." Now, we were able to get that colour to pop. David Jones weren't. No offence to David Jones, but, we're very sticklers for colours. And that's come down to, knowing like particular Pantone colours and really knowing how to work with that. So in that case, it's very much needed. And then we got the job back because sure enough, they couldn't make it pop the way we'd done the rest of, the whole rebrand. So, yeah, so it depends. And I mean, so colour and quantity. Of course, people aren't printing massive loads of annual reports anymore. Like 10,000 of those aren't going out. They might be sending 100 out. So things like that have definitely changed, and they have gone more towards digital. But there's definitely a place for it, and there's definitely a place for like a lot more touchy-feely. If it's even in retail, with all of your large format, as opposed to just the digital, it's like all of the big signage and all of that is bigger than, whether it be in a retail environment or whether it be at a conference or an exhibition. That's what's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because people are still wanting to be, pleased visually with what they see.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've noticed quite a lot of change. I mean, I've only been in the industry for 6 years, but I've noticed a shift and a lot of innovation in what can be achieved in digital print, especially in terms of Pantone colours and specialty colours. Things that used to only be reserved for offset, oranges, which do not print very well in CMYK. New machines like the new Indigo machines, they run 7 or 8 colours, I think, instead of 4. And you can digitally print some really, nice tones that were not achievable on digital, say 5 or 10 years ago, which is pretty cool. But then, the question, it always comes down to basically what colours are you printing? Are they tricky PMS colours, and what sizes you'll run? And taking all of those into consideration, a good print manager will work with the client to help make the decision what's going to be most economical and what's going to give you the best result.
And you can get our specialty finishes as well now on certain digital press machines, right? Like white and gold, silver, those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, paper stocks, also some paper stocks can't be done digitally, but on set there's a lot more variety. But having said that, we do digital foiling now, so there's some really good digital foiling. So you don't need to, do 3,000 invites. You can do 200 invites if you want. You can do 1 invite if you like. Digital foiling.
$50.
That's exciting. Often, like some of the embellishments that used to be reserved for massive runs that were out of reach for a short run, it's not the case anymore.
So, like, sorry, go Grant. I keep jumping.
No, that's fantastic that you were able to do small runs and to do the foil, because you always had to send that to the block maker, and then from the block maker you had to then send it to a special guy to put the foil on, and then you have to get it back, and you put the spot UV varnish on, then you take it to the scoring guy, and there's so many people touching it where you just want to get it less hands, less time, but more efficient in one space, one time, one run, to stop paper stretch and all that type of stuff, just to get a fantastic result at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What's the for a run, let's say for a larger run, like 10,000 units or 20,000 units, is I think they used to call it the click rate. I'm not sure if is that what it's called? Is it? I thought I had it right. I was like, let me just see.
I don't know about that.
Is it like for those larger runs, is it still distinctively more affordable on offset than digital?
I would say so.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a break-even point. It depends on what size or whatnot, but there's a point whereby it becomes more efficient to do it offset than on the digital machine.
So interesting. It's interesting. That's the one thing they haven't solved yet, is how to get that margin shrunk.
Well, I think it's shifting, isn't it? Every year, and as digital continues to evolve, and as you can get larger sheet sizes on digital presses, that point continually shifts.
Because the larger the sheet, more pages per sheet, which means you get
more pages. Yeah.
What about our web presses? That never really took off. Do you guys know what a web press is?
There's definitely web presses. I mean, all of your magazine work and what have you. That's all still.
Oh, like a digital web press though? Have you seen a digital? So I remember WYSIWYG used to have one, and I know one other company, but it was like a web press on a roll. That way you could print double-sided, but you weren't limited by length. You're only limited by width on it. Did you ever? I don't know if you've ever seen one or experienced one. I don't know if there's any more in existence, but it was I thought it was cool. I was like, this is brilliant. You just run the whole thing on one long line, Anyway, random aside. There you go. Random 30 seconds. That's it. Everyone's done. Okay, cool. Derailed you.
Well, look, I think that, especially when you're doing these runs and you're doing work and turn and you're trying to just get a job done, a printer always just wants the machine running for as long as possible, and therefore the bigger runs make it a bit more cost effective per unit. So I think that's ultimately what the game plan is, that, offset will always beat digital on that aspect. But once again, on the smaller runs, you can still get great effects.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
Perfectly. Ultimate. The wrap up was done. Everything was done within a 7-minute block. Perfect. I was like randomly going to start bringing up another subject, and I forgot that we're recording a show. I was just having a chat all of a sudden. I was like, when's the tea going to arrive? Did anyone else want to throw anything in? Like, I'm happy to just jump into the next question, but if anyone else wanted to add
last comments,
last comment before we put it to rest.
I think we've done pretty well.
Yeah, pretty well. I think what's still interesting is you often see these large leaps, but it's more like digital, like print is evolving over time. And in a lot of industries, it kind of goes like 0 to 100. It's like for some reason, nothing got updated for 5 years. And then all of a sudden it became incredibly different. And that's where I think the surprise, because even when I was in college, it was the same conversation. The click rate is too big between digital large runs and offset doing a large run. So doing a small run on offset is just unfeasible, and doing large runs on digital is not cost effective. So I wonder how long it will be before the day where it just kind of just zeroes out. And that'll be a really interesting moment, because definitely the quality of digital press is incredible. You know, these days it's like so photogenic, especially if you pick the right stocks, you have the right press. You know, obviously there's a bunch of old presses still floating around, but that's definitely what piqued my interest when we were thinking of this question the other day, was just seeing how much closer that's getting towards each other. Cool, that's enough. I ranted now. So the last question we have is actually about that turnaround time, and obviously making digital presses more expansive in the finishes it can produce. Obviously improves the ability to turn things around to client much faster. You know, living in a digital age, everyone's expectations are like instant gratification. Has that also affected the way that people look at print, and are people have their expectations? Like, I guess, Jane, you've probably been around it for, you know, in touch points for a while, you know, is it getting worse? Is it changing? Is it the same? How do you match those expectations? How do you manage them? There's a nice question. Have fun with that.
Sure, thanks. It is getting worse in that people do want it now, and I tell you why that is. I ask my customers, how can I help you get better prepared so that you don't have to spring this on yourself last minute? And then obviously it just comes with the territory, right, Andrew? It's like it really comes with the territory. But you can set those parameters a little bit better. I mean, we do like to help people out, so they don't abuse it though. I have to say they're really, really respectful and very grateful, which is so nice. But it's back down to helping them. A marketing manager might have the marketing director above them, and they, say, look, this is what we want to do. But then that sits in the ether, before the plan comes in, where they go, right, we want to go ahead with that. And already, maybe 3 weeks have gone past and they want it next week. It's like, whoa. So we want to try and educate them more so that they can go back and, with all our quotes, we talk about how long something really needs, because nobody wants to rush a job. We want to make sure we check everything, check is the color right, are the proofs been approved? Have we looked over the proof for you to help you out? All those things, because if you're rushing print jobs all the time, well, it's just, it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. But yes, the pressure's on, things, look at Andrew, I'm sure you'll agree with this. All of a sudden, December, everything was opening up and everybody was doing a conference or shops were opening up, and it was gangbusters. Like, it was just going nuts. So it was happening like, give me a pull-up banner in one day. In 2 hours, things like that. We seem to manage to be able to do it every time so far. But, it is about educating them. But at the same time, we like to help them out, because if we make their life easier, then, they want to stick around.
That's a tough balance to make, keeping them happy, making sure they have what they need, but also not biting yourself in the whatever.
It's called being the meat in the sandwich sometimes. Unless it feels like that. But we love it.
What's your experience, Andrew? Would you,
Yeah, look, I think when you deal with somebody over the long term, you definitely learn their style and they learn your style as well. So long-term relationships definitely help. So then you start to learn what are the sorts of jobs, how much lead time do you need? How much time do you really need? And what things do you need to remind them of. You can set, like I set calendars for certain clients if I know that a project's coming up, just to kind of prompt them before we get into an emergency kind of zone, which is what I do to kind of help control that. And then sometimes it's about forward planning. Like, for example, there's a job today which was like a reasonably big signage job which needs to arrive on Friday, but they only have the names that have to go into it this afternoon. And so it's not long enough to print the whole thing, like to design it, print it, have it delivered by close of business Friday afternoon. So we worked a solution where we printed everything and had that sitting there already 2 weeks ago. And we got the names this afternoon and we printed them on stickers and put them on, and it's going out on the same day courier tomorrow. So it's about being a little bit innovative with timelines and working out what you can get done beforehand in preparation, so that you're not rushing around at the last minute.
Nice. Another thing that I just realised that what we do also is we're helping people out with their design. So quite often one of the biggest problems, and you'd agree again with this, I'm sure, Andrew, is that, unless it's a print ready proof, it's all trim and bleed and everything's there ready to go. Quite often people present their print jobs and they're not ready, so we will help them with that process, and that saves so much time, because usually that's when you put that back on the client, usually that's the hold up, because the marketing manager might not be good at graphic design if they don't have a graphic designer in the team. So those little bits really help to just keep the job moving along, so that we can get to that deadline that they want to meet.
Yeah, also, you find that many times upper management doesn't always understand the concept of what they're trying to get out, and they're still trying to work it out. And yet you standing, waiting at the bit, trying to get things done because you've got a process to follow, and that I don't think they understand your process. And it's not really their problem, but they're still trying to work it out. And I think that's the frustration on both ends, because, your reputation's at stake, but of course their brand's at stake. So they, the two parties have to meet.
Yeah. And I think establishing what the end date is really good, so you can work backwards. And then we actually tell you, no, this is when we have to have the artwork. Yeah. So
the other thing I find useful is when it's sort of in the downtime and when you're not rushing, is taking a bit of time and working with the client to explain how to get the print ready, because oftentimes it's no more effort on their part. They just don't understand, or they don't quite know. So just explaining, what the correct crop marks are or how much bleed. The export settings, it can really set both parties up, us and the client, up for success moving forward. And we put in that time investment once initially, and it pays dividends for both of us long term. It's really exciting.
Not many clients understand page pagination. It's best that you guys just take care of that, because it can be very confusing. And there's nothing worse when a page lands upside down when it's been at the guillotine. So you want to try and avoid that.
My favorite day was when our printers stopped asking us to. They were just like, just send everything single page, like in order of how they're supposed to run. So this is what goes on the cover, or this is what the first page is, and then the second page, and the third page, and the fourth. I was like, thank God. I used to try and figure out all these like crazy ways to illustrate how it would come out to ensure the printer didn't get wrong. I'm like, why do they make it so hard for me? And then they're like, just single pages. I'm like, yes, best day of my life. Here you go. Here's a bunch of single pages in order of how they're supposed to come out. Print.
Well, I'd say if your printer's asking you to send it already paginated or imposed, then it would be a good idea to change printer. Because
printer, by the way, I don't think exists anymore. They closed that. That might be why.
Fair enough.
Awesome. Like, look at that, right on time. We got 14 more seconds. Grant, man, do you want to start your wrap up?
I think it's clear that, at the end of the day, print is not dead. And I think what's important is the fact that, it doesn't need to be a complicated task. Your printer is there to help you. Your printer has got far more insight, understanding to the systems and process they have to go through in order to make sure it's a great delivery. I think you're quite right in what you've displayed here today, is the fact that you work in conjunction with your printer and your printer's working in conjunction with you. I think together you come up with incredible opportunities of bringing the most incredible work out. I'm just very relieved and grateful the fact that print is not dead, and that there's still scope for great opportunity within print, because at the end of the day, it comes down to communication. Communication is vital. People's brands are vital, and therefore getting good understanding. And I think that's a valid role as to where printers and printing plays a key role in the marketing space of advertising and marketing.
Also benefits to have such cool people in print like these two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop it.
Stop it, you guys. Honestly, like I've obviously through my career, I've met a bunch of printers. I've been in and out of building relationships and rebuilding relationships and cementing them and reaffirming them. And to have both you in my network is, number one, it's a peace of mind, but it's also great to have such phenomenal suppliers that are always on the front foot. And it's so obvious through both of the things that you guys have set, through the presses that you're looking at, the systems that you're building, a printing establishment that keeps up with what people need today, and being able to achieve that in an economic and a sustainable way, which I think is the reason why both your businesses are going gangbusters. So it's so exciting. Andrew and I got to catch up recently and got to visit our team, and it was just so great to have you part of the whole atmosphere and sharing your current experiences. And Jane, we need to catch up soon, man. What's
we do. It's long overdue.
Impossible. She is almost impossible to get a hold of until today, where she tried to call me and then realized I'm even more difficult to get a hold of. So next time you see a call from me, you better pick it up, because that is a one in a lifetime chance.
Definitely.
Grant, anything else you want to wrap up with before I close off the show?
Look, I just think at the end of the day, it's for designers, for agencies, for clients to think bigger. It's not about thinking less. It's about more is more. I think right now it's about changing the way we've been led to believe in the last 10 years. Don't let digital think that it's going to be simpler, faster, better. Stick to the traditional methods, and I totally support it.
He just gave the thumbs up on Brand. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great show. That time just blitzed it. I loved it. And I felt like some of those subjects were dangerously close to just never ending. I feel like I could have just kept asking another question. I would just go, you know what? We've got only a little bit more time. I'm going to just keep it to myself. So maybe a reprint of this show in next quarter or something. No, another print extravaganza.
I think so.
And, in the meantime, everybody that's joining us on the show, please like, comment, share. We're always interested to hear what you think. If you have any questions, you have ideas of things we could talk about, you have guests that you would like us to feature on the show, you have controversial ideas that you think are too controversial to talk about yourself, we will unbundle them and unpack them on the show. Also, if
you'd like to be a guest on the show, let us know.
What was that?
If you'd like to be a guest on the show, let us know.
Exactly. Please reach out. Let us know. We are looking to have multi-guest shows because obviously, as you can see right here, having 2 guests are better than 1. Having no guests is basically not a show. It's just me and Grant. It's like 2020 at the beginning. It's like lockdown. That's what it is. So we love having on guests, and we love making a feature show. So this was obviously a great show to highlight printing. So again, we'd love any other kind of categories in the space that you'd like us to feature. We'll bring on the right kind of guests to give you the right kind of information. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Jane, both of you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I don't know, that's all I got. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Beautiful. Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here.
Guys.
Mutual.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Great to be part of the show, and nice to meet you, Grant and Jane. It was a good discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
Likewise,
guys.
Andrew.
Bye.
Thanks, Bernard. Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.